Welcome to a TBN special breaking news report. I'm Eric Stakelbeck, and the dust has barely settled from last night's unprecedented Iranian attack against Israel. The big question now, how will Israel respond? Over the next hour, we'll be joined from Israel by several top experts, including a spokesperson for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who will break down the situation right now, what comes next, and why it matters to you. But first, let's set the scene. I'm coming to you live from our TBN global headquarters in Dallas, Fort Worth, and in case you missed it, here is the state of play. Last night, in a massive attack, Iran launched over 300 projectiles against the state of Israel. Attack drones, ballistic and cruise missiles. It was the first time ever that Iran attacked Israel directly from Iranian soil. Remember, Iran usually acts through its proxies like Hezbollah and the Houthis. Now, those proxies also fired rockets at Israel last night in tandem with their Iranian masters. But here's the good news. Israel, along with the US, UK, and Jordan, shot down 99% of those incoming projectiles. The vast majority were shot down before they even entered Israeli airspace. Folks, this was an astounding success for Israel and its allies, and some are saying it was miraculous. Now, we've been telling you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and you see that stunning footage right there on your screen? Iranian missiles over Jerusalem that were all shot down. Prayer works, so keep it up. In the meantime, Israel goes about the business of responding to this historic, in all the wrong ways, escalation by the Iranian regime. Some Israeli officials have said that an unprecedented attack requires an unprecedented response. And yet, the Biden administration has made clear that it will not support any Israeli counterattack. President Biden reportedly told Prime Minister Netanyahu, quote, "You got the win, take the win." But can Israel really afford to not respond? If Iran gets away with what happened last night, isn't there a good chance they just do it again? Joining us now from Israel to break it down is Israeli Knesset member, former UN ambassador and chairman of World Likud, Danny Danon. Ambassador, great to see you again. It seems that allowing this Iranian attack to go unanswered would just invite further Iranian attacks. That's how bullies operate. What's your take on this?
First, we have to be grateful for the Lord and for our air defense systems for blocking the massive attack coming from Iran last night. You know, Eric, we stayed up all night watching the interceptions. You know, it was a miracle. It was a miracle, and we are blessed for that moment. But I agree with you. We cannot sit idly by after Iran struck Israel with 300 rockets, missiles, UAV, you name it. We're going to have to retaliate. The question is how and where. But if we don't do that, basically, it would give a lot of support to the Iranian regime. It will empower them. And we don't intend to do that. So I think, with all due respect to our allies, we cannot live in the Middle East without showing strength and power. And I think in the near future, Iran will understand that not only we have very good, sophisticated defense system, we also know how to strike back.
Yeah, there will be this international pressure, Ambassador, including from the United States. But I think one positive in last night was that, look, the US, UK, and Jordan, key point there, Sunni Arab Muslim nation, chipped in and helped to shoot down these incoming projectiles. What was your take on that, especially Jordan getting involved on behalf of Israel?
So, we know that Iran is spreading instability in the region, not only against Israel. They have the proxy that they spend $7 billion a year in order to create chaos. They attacked Saudi Arabia, they attacked the UAE, they're trying to take control over Syria, and for sure Lebanon. They have a lot of power in Lebanon already. So I think many moderate forces in the region wants to push back against the aggression coming from Iran. And when you hear the leadership of Tehran, they always speak about superiority. it's a psychological event here because they really believe that they are superior to Christianity, to Judaism, and to Sunni Muslim. And yesterday they realized that they have no superiority whatsoever. They were blocked in Jordan, in Iraq, and in other areas that met the defense system of the countries who stood against them.
Yeah. The Iranian regime believes it saved face, I guess you could say, Ambassador, last night after the takeout of top Iranian General Mohammad Reza Zahedi about 2 weeks ago. But you have to see this, at least I do. Hey, over 300 projectiles launched against Israel and 99% shot down. To me, that seems like a stunning failure for the Iranian regime. But in other ways, it was a new level in that Iran attacked Israel directly, usually acting through proxies, Ambassador, like Hezbollah and Hamas. How important is it now for Israel to send a message to the head of the snake, to Iran, the Iranian regime, directly?
Eric, one important point, despite the miracle that happened last night, we have to look at the intentions of the Iranian regime. And they targeted our capital, Jerusalem. They targeted military bases, cities in Israel. So, we have to look at the intentions and act accordingly. And like you mentioned, for the first time in our modern history, Iran attacked directly Israel. And they actually wanted to send a message to change the equation. They could have sent the proxies, but they wanted to send a message. And we got that message, and we will respond to that message. Whoever attacks Israel directly will meet the might of the IDF pretty soon.
Yeah, and just so people know, Ambassador, look, obviously there's a war in Gaza right now with the quest to destroy the Hamas terror group. We have Hezbollah, another Iranian proxy to Israel's north, and that's a very, very precarious situation. Is Israel able to battle on multiple fronts? The Houthis in Yemen launching rockets last night as well. Iran directly, of course. Is Israel able to fight on these multiple fronts, this entire Iranian ring of fire that surrounds Israel, which, just a reminder to folks, is a small nation. It's the size of the state of New Jersey. Is the IDF stretched thin here, or is a multiple front war something the IDF can handle and handle well?
Well, it's a challenge, I can tell you that, but we are determined to win. We are determined to bring back the hostages. We haven't forgotten them. But when you look at the map, look where Iran is and where Israel is. And you should ask yourself why they are actually spend so much money against us. We have no conflict over borders, over oil, nothing. It's pure hate against the Jewish people. That's what drives the Iranian regime to spend billions against us. And we have to take those threats very seriously. That is why when you see their nuclear efforts, that's something else we have to take into consideration. And last night, when they sent those ballistic missiles into Israel, I thought about what, God forbid, will happen when they will have a nuclear bomb. What will happen there? Yes. Because, they sent 300 rockets without even thinking into our territory. So I think we have to wake up and understand that it's not only the burden of Israel to fight radical Iran, and I hope to see our allies standing with us against evil, because the same missiles that got into Israel last night can get to Europe and even to the US in the future.
Great point, Ambassador Doan. As we go, last question. Number one, hey, imagine those ballistic missiles that were fired last night, dozens, being nuclear tipped. That's what Iran is working towards. Secondly, again, last question here. Why should every American watching right now care about what's happening over there in the Middle East? Why do we have such a stake in this fight?
The fight against all of us, not only against Israelis or the Jewish people. When the U.S. had an embassy, you saw the attacks against the U.S. embassy in Tehran. Today, we happen to be in the neighborhood, so they come against us. But basically, they will not stop until they will complete their mission, which is to conquer the world. And I believe we are capable of blocking them. I believe that if we are determined, we will prevail. And I want to thank all of those people who prayed for us and brought us the support to stand against evil.
Yeah. Ambassador Danny Danone, I know you've had a very long 24 hours with your family and with all the deliberations that you're involved in right now. We thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Stay safe. God bless you, Ambassador Danny Danone. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Eric. God bless you.
And you too. Absolutely. And folks, we are joined as always by our TBN Israel correspondent on the ground for us in Jerusalem. Talk about little sleep. Now, if you joined us last night, Governor Mike Huckabee and I hosted a live special right here on TBN. And Yair was with us then, and he's back with us now. He may have snuck in a 20-minute nap someplace along the line. But Yair, in all seriousness, number one, we can't thank you enough for joining us. And number two, my friend, how are you? And how is the morale in Israel right now? Look, there was such anticipation, even dread, of course. We knew this Iranian attack was coming. The drones, the rockets were in the air. It took a while to arrive at Israel, but they eventually got there. But what is the sense right now among the people of Israel? A sense of relief? Or is there a sense that, look, now we have to strike back and this thing's far from over?
Okay, Eric. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to all of the millions of Christians that have been praying for the peace of Jerusalem, for Israel. And for me and my family in personal, I've been receiving lots of prayer messages that people are standing with Israel during this time in prayer, in belief, in sharing the truth of what is happening in this land. Because, Eric, this is not just a physical war. This is a war of deception and a war of misinformation. And we need all the help we can get in order to spread the truth so that people will know how and what to pray for. And in general, the feeling here in Israel is still very tense. The school systems and the high alert of the normal day-to-day life is still up there. It is still very tense. And the level of intensity and readiness of the people of Israel is still high. We are still waiting for maybe another round of offensives or for the Israeli retaliatory attack against Iran that will drag another Iranian response. We learned three things in the past 2 days. The first thing is that our defense systems work, thank God. Second thing is that we have an anti-Iran coalition in the Middle East that involves also Arab states, and that's also a miracle. And the third thing is that the West does not want Israel to respond to this aggression. And sadly, this is something that the West does not learn. This is the Middle East, and people do not respond to diplomacy. They do not respond to talk. They respond to action. So this is something that is very important for me to say, that we are facing an enemy that wants to destroy us. And the only way we can defend ourselves is by taking action.
Yair, key point. And just so everyone at home watching knows, and Yair, you could break this down for us, I believe. Some are saying, look, we don't want to escalate this thing. We don't want tit for tat here. President Biden said as much to Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly last night in a phone call. He said, look, the Iranian attack failed. 99% of these incoming projectiles were shot down. Just let it lie. But why is that so problematic? If this goes unanswered by Israel, if a strong message is not sent to the Iranian regime, I said this to Ambassador Danone, I'll say it again. Look, it seems to me that Iran would have carte blanche at that point, and they'd say, hey, we got away with it. Let's do it again. And maybe some of those rockets and missiles will sneak through and hit their target.
Yes, Eric, listen, if the Iranians would have succeeded in their attempts to target our military bases, they would have completely destroyed at least 2 of our Air Force bases in Israel. That's a massive strike that would jeopardize the Israeli ability to defend itself. Okay, so that's huge. And just listen, 300 projectiles, including UAVs, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. What more do you want in order for us to respond? Okay, so we defended ourselves. Is that enough? We have a bully in the Middle East that is doing whatever it wants. And we're the only ones that are defending the West from this evil. Israel is the only barrier between Iran and the West. So we need the West to support us because we are the last defense before this thing reaches the United States, Europe, and other countries in the world. And I'm not just saying that because of a military point of view. I think that this is a spiritual war because there is no reason for Iran to care about Israel, such a small country so far away, Eric.
Yeah, Yair, great point. And the great thing is you will be with us throughout the hour, and we're going to break that down more. This is a battle between good and evil. Yair and I will break it down more coming up. And folks, by the way, if you like what you're hearing here from Yair Pinto, our TBN Israel correspondent, you can catch him on a frequent basis on our brand new TBN show, Stackleback Tonight, hosted by yours truly, every weeknight, Monday through Friday, right here on TBN, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And surely we'll be breaking this down this week, Iran and Israel, and Yair will be joining us. Okay, Yair, stay awake, sit tight. We'll be back with you shortly. In the meantime, we're going to go right now to London and our very good friend, Johnny Moore, Middle East expert on many things, including religious freedom and much more. Johnny, always great to have you, my friend. And look, as we've been watching this unfold over the past 48 hours or so, what are your thoughts, knowing the region as intimately as you do? And look, meeting with Arab leaders on a frequent basis, meeting with Israeli leaders, what are some of your big takeaways about what we saw last night and what still lies ahead?
Look, I guess I have 4 or 5 things, but I'll settle on 3. The first one is what happened last night was a miracle. It will go down in history. I mean, literally over 300 projectiles fired at Israel, and this is the type of story that we will tell for many, many generations. Number 2, this had an incredible effect in the broader Middle East, because after October 7th, I have to tell you, I talk to Arab leaders all the time. I talk to people in the region. And there were questions about whether Israel was as strong as everyone believed Israel was, whether Israel had the technological and military advantage that everyone believed it had, whether Israel would be the reliable ally and successful ally if Iran ever misbehaved. There were questions after October 7th. After what happened on April 13th, there are no questions anymore. It is very, very clear that there's only one military in the world more powerful than Israel. It's the United States of America, and we're allies. And then number 3, what some people have talked about more than others, but you had the official and unofficial cooperation of Arab leaders across the entire region, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So this was a game-changing moment. And as you said, Eric, I'm in London. I've been talking to a lot of people in this part of the world. The whole mentality has changed here. Now people are being awakened again, that this began with Iran on October 7th, continues with Iran to this day. This is the big problem. There are 2 visions for the Middle East. Israel and the Abraham Accords represents one. Hamas and the Islamic Republic of Iran represents the other.
Johnny, great point. You have been intimately involved in the Abraham Accords and with those Sunni Arab Muslim nations who now have peace agreements with Israel. Here on TBN, we have been involved as well. A lot of programming on the Abraham Accords. We've really documented the importance of them. So you believe last night solidified those battle lines. On one side, you have the Iranian axis, and on the other side, you have Israel with what would have been strange bedfellows not so long ago. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the UAE, Bahrain. You believe those battle lines were even more clearly defined last night?
Yeah, and of course, the only person that was injured by one of these Iranian projectiles was a Muslim child, an Israeli Bedouin Muslim child. For a long time, people will remember that on April 13th was the day that the Israelis saved the mosque, not just the holy sites, in Jerusalem. I mean, we all watched in front of our eyes on the camera as the Israelis shot these missiles out of the sky. So Iran sits over there and wants to be the custodian of religion. Yeah, and what happened was it was the Israelis that saved those sites.
Yeah, stunning, Johnny. the Biden administration reportedly is now applying some pressure on Israel to not respond, or at least not respond in any sort of really meaningful way. How concerned are you? How concerned should we be that Israel may have one hand tied behind its back, so to speak, as it looks to respond to this Iranian bully?
Well, the Israelis are going to do what they need to do. And what they must do is not let this be the end of the chapter. The Israelis have all kinds of ways of doing that. It may look like something we've never seen before. But Israel, whatever the United States, says, Israel has to do what's in its best interest. It doesn't mean it has to spark a regional war. It doesn't mean there has to be another chapter, a significant chapter to all of this. But even though the Iranians had a disastrous night and their mission failed entirely, the Israelis can't let that be the last word. They also have time on their advantage. It doesn't have to happen in the next few hours. It might. It could be a few weeks. No one knows, but Israel has to respond. And as Americans, we have to remember, it's not just the White House or the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of State that matters here. It's the entirety of the U.S. government. And Congress, Democrat and Republican, are pretty well aligned that this is a history-changing moment. We have never seen a direct attack from the Islamic Republic of Iran to Israel. In fact, it's broader than that. We haven't seen something like this. Whoever was in charge at Iran for hundreds and hundreds of years, like this is a tragic, historic moment. And if Israel doesn't do something drastic in response to it, then the next time there's a disagreement, the Iranians are going to try it again. And we can't open up a new chapter where the Israelis are bombarded by Hamas, bombarded from Syria, bombarded from Lebanon, and the Iranians wake up and send a drone that takes 10 hours. They need to think twice.
Yeah, and Johnny, I shudder to think about those ballistic missiles last night if they were nuclear tipped. And by the way, this was the first time, just to remind everyone, and if you're just joining us, this is a live TBN special report on the state of play right now. Israel attacked by Iran last night. What comes next and why it matters to you. But Johnny, a reminder for everyone, this was the first time Israel was directly attacked by another nation state since 1991, when Iraq, Saddam Hussein launched dozens of Scud missiles at Tel Aviv. Now, also a reminder, Iran, and this may stun some people, Johnny, you know it well, Iran is a Bible land. Iran was ancient Persia. And Johnny, you've done such great work on the persecuted church. But isn't there a good bit of news coming out of Iran amid all the madness that the Iranian church is growing? As a matter of fact, it's the fastest growing church in the world, mostly underground, of course, facing relentless persecution from the regime. Johnny, tell us more about that if you can.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that the evangelical church is maybe the fastest growing church in the world is within Iran. It's that the Iranian people actually oppose, the vast majority of the Iranian people, a super majority of the Iranian people, actually oppose this insanity coming from the Ayatollahs out of Tehran. So I'm always very careful to refer to the Islamic Republic versus the Iranian people, like the Chinese people versus the CCP. And at the very, very heart of it are people of faith, because the mullahs in Tehran, they use religion for terror. They abuse the name of God to kill people. It is a weapon of warfare. That's why they didn't care when they were shooting missiles that could have landed on top of their holy places in Jerusalem. And here's the other point that we all have to pay attention to. This didn't happen overnight. Unfortunately, we've had a number of years of U.S. and European policy, the last 3.5 years, that has empowered the Iranian regime. We've given them billions and billions of dollars. Just a few weeks ago, the daily amounts of oil that Iran was exporting had reached the highest point in 5 or 6 years. We just did a waiver giving the Iranians $10 billion of money connected to electricity in Iraq. There are two stark contrasts of foreign policy. A foreign policy of appeasement, and appeasement is always escalatory, and a foreign policy of peace through strength. And that's what we need now. That's what we saw last night. And as an American, I'm very, very concerned that my elected officials, whatever party they are in, don't allow our government to continue on a path of appeasement, because the lessons of history is appeasement always equals more conflict. It's like when you're a child on the playground, the bully will push you around until you push back. And that's what has to happen. The United States of America, we are the most powerful, wealthiest country in the world. We have the toughest, most sophisticated military in the world. It's not that we're weak at all. We saw last night what can happen when we get serious. But what we have to do is make sure that all the bad guys around the world know that we're serious. And in the meantime, Eric, as a Christian, the beautiful thing is that in all of these countries, all over the world, we have this like growing Christian movement of believers who know what the truth is. We're willing to die for a faith that we sometimes struggle to live for. And they're the ones, in the case of Iran, you have evangelical Christians that last night, when the missiles and the drones and the rockets were falling, they were in their prayer rooms, not praying for the success of the mullah's insane attack on Iran, on Israel from Iran. They were praying for the peace of Jerusalem, and that every one of those drones and every one of those missiles would fall from the sky. And sure enough, I believe the prayers that were answered last night were not the prayers of American evangelicals or South American evangelicals. They were the prayers of the Iranian church, which hates what the mullahs have done to their country and long for the peace that they too will one day enjoy with Israel. Because the days who are numbered are not the days of the state of Israel. The days which are numbered are the days of the Ayatollahs.
Oh, Johnny, so well said, my friend. Hey, last question. And by the way, those images of Iranian missiles over the Temple Mount, where, of course, the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque now stand, where both Jewish temples once stood, where Jesus taught, where he chased out the money changers, those images will be etched in my mind. And I think many people watching. Last question before we let you go. And thank you so much, by the way, for joining us. You're several hours ahead in London. You touched on it a minute ago. How can the body of Christ pray in this situation? Look, we see anti-Semitism on the rise around the world. We see Israel attacked by a wicked regime. How can we pray right now? A lot of people are saying, what can I do? How can I make a difference? We saw last night in Jerusalem and elsewhere, prayer certainly works. It was miraculous. How can we keep this ball rolling for the Lord and in support of Israel?
Three things. We have to pray on scale, we have to pray with frequency, and we have to pray for peace. And I'll start with the last one. We pray for peace because there are a lot of moderate Arab countries and Muslim countries that want to have peace with the state of Israel. And we need to pray that all of those who hate peace, this is what happened on October 7th. Hamas committing the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust because they saw the prospect of peace on the horizon with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We need to pray for peace, including for Israel's Muslim neighbors. Number two, we need to pray with frequency. This is a historic moment. Don't pray once every Sunday when you go to your church service. Pray at the beginning of every hour you're awake. Just breathe a small prayer underneath your breath for the peace of Jerusalem, that God would protect and bring peace to that part of the world. And the last thing is on scale, okay? I'm making a promise again and again and again that there are millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Christians all around the world praying these prayers. I can't make that happen. You can't make that happen. But the people listening to us can make it happen, because there are millions of people that if there are a million people listening to us right now, and they call 5 people, and they call 5 people, and they call 10 people, then all of a sudden hundreds of millions of people are praying. We need prayers on scale. We need prayers with frequency. And we need to pray the prayer of Romans 16, verse 20, that soon the God of peace will crush Satan underneath our feet.
Amen. Johnny Moore, great stuff, my friend. As always, so appreciative that you joined us from London. And you will be back with us very soon here on TBN. I know you're going to be a regular guest on our new show, Stackleback Tonight, here on TBN. Johnny, thanks again. God bless you. Stay safe. And we'll see you soon. Right now, we are heading back to the land of Israel. And folks, when we want a breakdown of the military essence of what's happening right now, military, strategic, what comes next, we go to our good friend, Israeli Defense Forces Reserve Major Elliot Chodoff, top military and strategic analyst. Elliot, great to have you with us as always. First question.
Always.
As always, my friend. And first question, look, you've been in the room when major military deliberations have been made in Israel. We're talking about a response here. No one wants to see a major war, of course, but Israel must respond here, it seems, because to not respond invites more Iranian aggression. Again, that's how bullies work. What do you think some of the deliberations are right now in the Israel Defense Forces about an answer to Iran in the wake of what happened last night?
As always, it's a complicated strategic situation. First of all, let's be clear. Israeli deterrence failed last night. The attack itself means that Israel did not deter Iran. We defended against it, and here, as you know, I'm a ground forces officer, so it pains me to say it, but the Air Force performed brilliantly, outstandingly, far beyond anybody's expectations, I believe. Over 300 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles were fired. 2 missiles landed in Israel. Neither of them caused significant damage. This is a slam dunk victory as far as we're concerned from the Air Force and the air defense point of view. And now the question is what next? And here it becomes a little more complicated. We don't want an escalation with Iran at the moment, if for no other reason, because we have a lot of unfinished business in much closer. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian proxy militias in Syria and Iraq, the Houthis. Iran is certainly the head of the snake. But now we have to add another aspect to it. And this is our the grand political strategic aspect, and that is the Biden administration and the European allies, Britain, Germany, France, and how much of that support do we use? Because, you know, assets are something that you use and you don't get them back very quickly, in going after Iran, rather than using them to go after Hamas and Hezbollah. Very, very difficult question. If it were up to me, I would go after a surgical target in Iran just to teach them a lesson. Ballistic missile base, storage, an air base, or something along those lines. But frankly, if it's a trade-off between further American and European support to go after Hamas and Hezbollah against an immediate response to Iran, I can understand the government saying, let's go after the local enemies first, and we'll deal with Iran as a strategic enemy a little bit further down the road.
Wow. Great analysis, Elliot. Look, I think a lot of people are wondering right now, okay, we know Iran is targeting Israel, Hezbollah, of course. Could you give our viewers an idea of the strength of Iran and Hezbollah in particular? Look, we've seen over the past 6 months in real time, Israel has largely decimated Hamas in Gaza in the wake of the October 7th massacre. But Hezbollah, very formidable, sitting perched on Israel's northern border in Lebanon. And Iran itself has the largest ballistic missile stockpile in the entire region. Could you give us a sense of what Israel is facing in the form of Hezbollah and Iran and their capabilities?
Okay, let's start with Iran. What we saw last night was, I think, the qualitative limit of what Iran could do. In other words, I don't think they have anything more sophisticated than what they fired last night. They certainly have more of it. In other words, it's a quantitative threat. Part of what they tried to do last night and failed miserably at, again, thanks to extremely superior performance by the Israeli Air Force, and frankly, the help of our allies, America, Britain, France, and Jordan, in taking out virtually everything that was fired at us. They could fire more, but I don't see them capable of firing significantly more at one time. In other words, what we were able to do last night, we should be able to do again repeatedly. Hezbollah fired 100 rockets into the Golan last night, which is a significant number. They have, in my estimation, 350,000 rockets that can hit virtually anywhere in Israel except for Eilat. So in a paradoxical way, the immediate devastating threat to Israel is more Hezbollah than it is Iran. And that's a threat that, if it turns into a reality, we're only going to be able to deal with a major air and ground offensive into Lebanon, which I think is imminent. I think it's something we're looking at over the next month or two, regardless, keeping in mind that there are close to 100,000 Israelis who are evacuated from their homes along the northern border because of Hezbollah, and that's an intolerable situation. They're not going back as long as Hezbollah is firing rockets and anti-tank missiles into their homes, which is doing on a daily basis.
Elliot, key point there, by the way, about the north. You and I were together just about a month and a half ago near that Lebanon border in a closed military zone. We got exclusive access for the Stacklebeck Tonight show. And one of the things that stood out to me is, look, like you said, 100,000 Israelis evacuated from the north under that looming Hezbollah threat with really no idea when they're going to be able to go home, living out of suitcases in hotels. Talk about praying for Israel right now, folks, praying for the peace of Jerusalem. If you are just joining us, we are live. It is Sunday, April 14th. This is a TBN special report. Israel under fire, an unprecedented attack last night. Iran directly attacked Israel, fired over 300 projectiles at the world's one and only Jewish state. Thankfully, some 99% of those missiles and drones were shot down. But Elliot Chodoff, who joins us from Israel live right now, big picture question. I think we saw the battle lines pretty clearly drawn last night. Okay, on one side, you have the Iranian axis, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. And on the other side, Israel, the Sunni Arab nations like Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the U.S., of course. What about Russia and China? And you're great at this as a top strategic analyst. Let's go big picture, larger scene here. What about Iran's larger backers? How do Russia and China, for instance, see this? And what will their reaction be to all the chaos unfolding in the Middle East right now?
Well, let's say that the silence, the thunderous silence from Russia and China in the aftermath of what happened, I think speaks for itself. Both of them would like to see an Iranian victory. They would like to see an Israeli defeat. But Russia is still in up to its eyeballs in Ukraine. They would like very much to see their Iranian ally gain more power. It would put them in a better leverage position. But they're not about to go out of their existing zone to back certainly what turned out to be a tremendous failure. Putin isn't stupid. If Iran had succeeded last night, I think we would have seen applause out of Moscow. The failure of last night means that Moscow is saying, well, maybe we shouldn't identify with this, even if we would have liked to see a different outcome. China, even more strategic and slightly more distant, they would also like to see an Iranian victory. It would suit them, certainly in terms of their global aspirations against the United States and against American allies, but they're not going to go out on a limb either. They're going to leave the Iranians to hang completely by themselves. And when it's all over, and the Chinese made a statement today against this escalation, I'm always amused, by the way, by all of the powers, particularly the Iranian supporters, but not only, who after they fired 300 cruise missiles and drones and missiles against Israel, they say, we don't want to see an escalation. Well, what was last night if it wasn't an escalation? What they're saying is they don't want Israel to turn around and smack them.
And I think October 7th, Elliot, which was in part engineered by the Iranian regime, was the ultimate escalation. Hey, we've got about 30 seconds left. Real quick. Israel, we don't know how Israel is going to respond, but it seems that no response at all is highly unlikely, right?
Highly unlikely. It may not be direct. Let's keep in mind that the idea of response here is of a world of semi-peace. We're at war with Iran. So we're going to keep hitting Iranian targets, whether they're in Syria or in Lebanon or in other places. And it doesn't need to be a tit-for-tat response, more along the lines of we're going to strike at what suits us strategically and tactically, and not necessarily just sending them a signal.
Yeah. Elliot Chodoff, the one and only. Thank you so much, my friend, as always, for joining us. Top strategic and military analyst. And hey, we'll have you back, Elliot, very soon. IDF Reserve Major. God bless Elliot Chodoff. Stay safe. Let's go now to a spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Tal Heinrich is joining us. You've also seen Tal here on TBN, producer, anchor extraordinaire, and she's with us now to break down the situation between Israel and Iran. Tal, great to have you with us. I know, hey, you're a spokesperson for the Prime Minister's office, of course. I know there are some very serious deliberations right now happening in the war cabinet. What can you tell us right now about Israel's potential response? Obviously, you can't get too much in detail, but it seems that this story isn't over in the wake of last night's attack.
Great. You are correct, Eric. So the War Cabinet, just as we speak right now, finished, I guess, a few moments ago, another meeting following yesterday's unprecedented attack by Iran, which was met by an unprecedented response by Israel, the United States, and other partners, the UK, France, and regional partners. I just heard the IDF spokesperson speaking also in the last hour, saying that Iran launched over 60 tons of explosives our way. Over 300 explosive drones and ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, and 99% of which were repelled, intercepted. Very few missiles eventually managed to cross into our territory, which is really incredible. And it speaks volumes to the phenomenal cooperation that we saw last night and high preparedness. We are still prepared, both defensively and offensively. And again, to your question, all I can say is that there's not going to be any taking chances on Israel's security, not when it comes to Hamas and Gaza, and not when it pertains to Iran. 100 ballistic missiles targeting us from Iran is not going to become in any way the new normal. Be sure of that. So the War Cabinet, everyone's making considerations right now. We're taking into account various factors, of course, and consulting with allies, our best friends, the United States. We share concerns, we take advice, but eventually Israel will decide how it wants to move forward. How we would like to operate. The Prime Minister underscored this concept that by which we act, which is if anyone is trying to hurt us, if anyone is threatening to hurt us, we will hurt them. And I think Iran got the message with the strong response it met last night, and we'll make sure it gets the message.
How important was it for Jordan to step up, for Saudi Arabia to step up? Tal, I think a lot of people might have been surprised, but if you're watching the region very closely like you do, of course, you know that the Sunni Arab nations like Jordan, like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, like the UAE, are highly concerned about the Iranian regime and the threat it poses to them. So how heartening was that, and how encouraging was that for Jordan in particular to step up and shoot down some of these incoming projectiles that were headed for Israel?
So regional partners were indeed involved. I'm not going to speak to the scope of their involvement or who exactly was involved, and we'll leave that to them. What I can say is that anywhere you look around the region, Eric, and you know that, you reported that many times, where you see bloodshed, you see terrorism, you see troublemaking, you see chaos, you see the footprints of Iran. And not only in our region, also if you look, to Ukraine, European soil, you'll find Iranian drones there. The same explosive drones that were sent our way are the same drones that the Ukrainian people are suffering from. So last night also underscored the fact, once again, if somebody hasn't realized that yet, that Iran is not just a problem to Israel's security. Iran is a problem to the free world, to the civilized world. Iran is, we see them for what they are. This is why they call us, Israel, the small Satan, and the United States, the great Satan, because we know what they are. And yesterday we sent them a very strong message. Don't mess with us. Don't mess with the free world. We know what you are. You are a dangerous regime that puts the notion of annihilating a sovereign state before taking care of your own civilians.
Yeah, Tal, great point. Look, you split your time between New York and Tel Aviv, so you've got your finger on the pulse of not only Israel, but the United States. Are you concerned that there may be in some quarters any sort of slippage in support for Israel? Do you get a sense that we're seeing that a bit as anti-Semitism, of course, is on the rise? We've got kind of an isolationist wing here in the United States as well. How concerning is that? That, look, the U.S., obviously Israel's greatest ally. Is there a concern that maybe in some quarters, certainly not all, certainly not among our audience at TBN and evangelicals in the U.S. and around the world, but is there a concern that in some quarters there is some lagging support?
So a few things to break down here. Over the past 24 hours, I can tell you that Israelis did not feel any kind of isolation. Thankfully, if you saw, maybe follow, I think the foreign minister, Israel Katz, he retweeted on his Twitter feed every kind of, a statement of support that came from world leaders. And that was truly remarkable to see the outpouring of support. And, unfortunately, I think we haven't seen this kind of support since in the days after October 7th. What we say is that this support should be consistent, not only when we are very, very clear victims, but also when we come out of this victorious. Because moral clarity is on our side. We're fighting the evil forces that even different powers in the region understand are the dark evil forces, the Iranian axis of evil, trying to take us all back to the darkness of the Middle Ages. We want to move forward. We never seek wars. We seek peace. But again, if someone is trying to hurt us, then we will act. We will defend ourselves. For many, many years, throughout history, from biblical times to modern times, there were these people who tried to annihilate the Jewish people. They wanted, and they still want in Tehran to wipe us off the map. What's different now is that we have a country and we're able to defend ourselves. And some people out there, they might not like it. The Jews are now able to fight back, and we don't just die. But we cherish life, and we will continue to prevail, because this is, we prevailed for thousands of years, and there's a reason why we managed to survive after so many hardships, including yesterday.
Yeah. Tal, you said it, moral clarity. That's what's needed right now. It's a battle between good and evil, and Israel is on the side of good. And by the way, folks, if you had any doubt about any threat, any sort of threat that Iran poses to the United States, in the Iranian ideology, not of the Iranian people, but Iran's leadership, it's Israel that is, in their words, the little Satan, and America is the great Satan. That's why some have called Israel the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, the first line of defense for Western civilization. Tal, we've got about a minute left. Could you break down real quick for every American, every Christian, why this fight is so important and why we can't bury our heads in the sand when Israel's being attacked?
Because it's not just our fight. Again, it's the civilized world against barbarian forces. Iran has been threatening the world, not just Israel, and destabilizing the world through its proxies. If it's the Houthis in Yemen that pose a maritime threat, a piracy threat to global commerce, each one of us is paying more for certain goods because of that. You have Hezbollah, you have Palestinian Islamic Jihad, you have Hamas. You have the same militias in Iraq and Syria that attack U.S. military bases attacking us as well. We should send a united, unequivocal message to Iran and make sure that they don't become any more dangerous, by the way, from what they are today, and never allow them to acquire nuclear weapons. They should be sanctioned, and the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, should be defined by everyone in the free world as a terrorist organization.
Tal, great breakdown as always. I know you are very busy right now, so we truly appreciate you joining us. Spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Tal Heinrich, our good friend Tal. We will see you back here very soon. God bless, stay safe. And let's head now back
Thank you as always, Eric.
Thank you, Tal. We're going to head now back to Jerusalem. Our good friend Yair Pinto is still hanging tough. He's still with us, going on very little sleep as he and his family last night, look, like every Israeli, and Yair lives near Jerusalem, heard the sound of the incoming missiles and drones and the explosions in midair. It was a very precarious time for Israelis last night. Yair is good enough to stay up basically all night with us here at TBN and provide great on-the-ground reporting like only he can. Yair, look, people may not realize, but you're not too far removed from the battlefields of Gaza. Just a few months ago, you were in Khan Yunis. You were in Gaza City. You're also up north near the Lebanon border. As Israel faces multiple threats, and we talked to Elliot Chodoff about this a few minutes ago, but as Israel faces multiple threats, some people say to me, wow, man, you go to Israel, aren't you scared? And isn't it hard to live in Israel? That's not the case. Tell us about the morale right now, the spirit of the people of Israel. You and I were together just about a month and a half ago on the ground in Israel, and I felt unity and resilience and a strong spirit. What are you seeing and what are you feeling?
Yes, Eric, the feeling here amongst the people of Israel is definitely unity. We are united because of a few reasons. One is because we are fighting for our lives, and we know and understand that if we are not fighting this war together, we will not make it. And secondly, we are fighting for a better future, for a future of peace for our children, for a future of peace with our neighbors, our Arab neighbors in this Middle East. We believe there is a chance for a better Middle East. And that's not just me speaking, it's the people of Israel. There is hope. And even throughout all this darkness of the past 24 hours that we saw people that really wanted to destroy us, we saw hopes of our neighbors that joined our defense and defended the state of Israel against the Iranian attack. So that was really encouraging, Eric. So there is hope here in Israel. And on a personal note and on a security note, I'm really proud of the IDF and our defense ability against this attack.
Yeah, this is a spiritual battle at the end of the day. We battle not against flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities. The word of God is very clear about that. Do you feel personally, look, you've got millions of TBN viewers around the world, including watching right now live, praying for you, praying for Jerusalem, praying for Israel. Do you feel that? Is it palpable in Israel? Can you feel it? Do you feel the support of evangelicals, of Bible-believing Christians around the world?
Yes, Eric. So in the past few days, and I think it's basically since the beginning of this war, I wake up in the morning, and during the war, if I had reception, I would check my phone, and I would see messages from people I never heard of, never talked to. And they said, we are praying for you. We are praying for the people of Israel. We are with you. One of the nicest messages I keep getting is, if I was 20 years younger, I would put my boots on and go and fight with Israel on the ground next to you. So that's super encouraging to see that we are not alone. And in the Gaza Strip, entering the Gaza Strip, this terrible place after the 7th of October, the place that teaches the children how to murder Jews and how to kidnap Israeli soldiers. And I saw this on textbooks inside schools in the Gaza Strip. In this terrible place, I felt peace. I prayed to God before I was called into Khan Yunis, and I felt peace to enter. And I was able to share this peace and the happiness with my fellow soldiers. And I also told them that millions of Christians from around the world are praying for them and that they are not alone. And Eric, they were shocked and so happy to know that somebody is on Israel's side at that darkest moment after the 7th of October, where we felt the whole world is against us.
Yeah, you can really, first of all, that is so encouraging for us, Yair, as prayer warriors, as intercessors here at TBN around the world. We are praying for Israel. We're praying for you, for the peace of Jerusalem, and to know that those prayers are being noticed and appreciated. And clearly, we saw what happened last night. Projectiles over Jerusalem, they're no more. Prayer works. Hey, speaking of prayer, we've got about 2 minutes left here. You are in Jerusalem, where God Almighty, some say, is a local call, in his one and only ancient and ancestral city where he's written his name forever. In about a minute here, Yair, can you lead us in prayer from Jerusalem?
Yes, definitely, Eric. Thank you. אבינו שבשמיים, תודה לך שאתה איתנו. תודה לך שאתה שומר על עמך ישראל. Our Father in heaven, thank you that you are with us. Thank you that you are protecting your people, Israel. Keep protecting us against this evil, because you were faithful to the people of Israel, and you will be faithful to each and every one of us all over the world, because you are a faithful God and you keep your word. So thank you for protecting us here. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, Amen.
Amen, amen. Yair Pinto, our dear friend. Hey, my friend, go get some sleep. Promise me you're going to take a nap. You've been up all night, my friend. We're praying for you. We're praying for your family. We're praying for Israel. We're going to keep you busy this week on, of course, your YouTube channel, which everyone needs to subscribe to, the TBN Israel YouTube channel. It's amazing. Stacklebeck tonight here on TBN every Monday through Friday. You'll be joining us 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So get some sleep, my friend. God bless you. Yair Pinto, our TBN Israel correspondent, doing just an incredible job. And folks, bringing you the kind of exclusive insights you won't see anywhere else. That's what we do here on TBN for such a time as this. No more than now. Hey, God bless you. Thanks so much for joining us. Much more to come throughout the week on this breaking news. Stay tuned. Keep it right here on TBN. God bless. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.